Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this virtual meeting of the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Please ensure your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. In addition, when asked to raise your hand, could you raise your electronic hand? And if you've got questions, can you raise your electronic hand, and that will be easier for me to see as we go through. So there's item 1 of the agenda. We're moving on to item 2. We've got declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay.
I can't see any indications, Chair.
I can't see any indications, so we will move on. So minutes of the previous meeting, item 3. The minutes of the 20th of April are before us today. For accuracy, do any members have any comments? Flying through the items on the agenda so far. Can I have a proposer, please, for the minutes?
Yeah, move, Chair.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Councillor Percy, and seconded then by Councillor John. Thank you. Can you indicate now if you're happy to accept the minutes? Just raise your hand. Okay, that's everybody. Yeah, that looks unanimous to me. So there's no abstentions and no problems there. Wonderful. Okay, that brings us on to agenda item 4, correspondence between Scrutiny Committee Chair and Corporate Joint Committee Chair. So we're very lucky to have Councillor Rob Stewart with us today. Welcome, Councillor Stewart. Thank you for attending.
No problem. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so what we thought might be just easy to hand over to you, really, to from following the correspondence. If we start that way, and then we can maybe ask you questions afterwards. If you could give us a brief update, please, where we are.
Yeah, yes, certainly. I was going to suggest perhaps, in terms of the correspondence, was there any specific aspect of the correspondence that you wanted to focus in on or follow up on? I think rather than just do a broad brush, if you perhaps if I take questions in terms of that might be the best way to do it if you're happy with that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. I completely understand. So thanks, Councillor Stewart. I think the Scrutiny Committee mainly at the moment are reflecting your concerns as a CJC, actually, from when we were having our discussions, that realistically, the timelines that you're expected to meet by Welsh Assembly, and also the budget, the fact that you don't appear to be getting any budget response from them. So if you could update us on if you've had any response from your letter about the transport, maybe initially, based on those two aspects, that'd be a good start, please.
Yes, certainly. So yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, we have continued to make the case that the responsibilities and obligations that come with the CJC do have to be properly funded by Welsh Government, and we've been very clear with the government that we will do all we can, but we can only work to the budget that we've been provided. There is some positive news in terms of the regional transport plan. The Welsh Government had indicated that on submission of the plan, the 125,000 that we were awaiting would be released to us, and I believe that has now happened. I think Stuart may be able to confirm that is the case, but certainly that was there. But of course, that 125,000 in of itself isn't enough to deliver everything that we'd want to do in terms of regional transport planning. So again, one of the things that the Corporate Joint Committee have been very vocal about with Welsh Government is, if the Welsh Government would like the CJC to do the maximum that we potentially could do, they will have to provide us with additional funding, and we were grateful for Scrutiny's support in making that case as well.
Sorry, I put myself on mute. Okay, thank you, Councillor Stewart. That's very helpful, and it's good to hear that the 125 has been released. That is certainly positive news. But as you say, and as you made clear in your letter, that that's just a small amount compared to the amount of resources you do need to deliver. So I'm going to ask if members have got questions, and we can go from there. obviously the next item, Councillor Stewart, is the Audit Wales letter, and again there were some similar points that came through in that, and if you don't mind, I think members might bring in some of that when they ask their questions to you. Yeah, okay, good. There we are then. So Councillor Percy, you were first to get your hand raised.
Yeah, diolch Cadeirydd, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just in relation to the letters and correspondence from Councillor Stewart and the CJC to Welsh Government, I wondered if there was any further clarity, because I remember with regards to the regional transport plan, there's uncertainty regarding funding, but also regarding Transport for Wales's role and how they may assist the CJC with resourcing, whether that would be staff support or whatever it is. I wonder if there'd been any further clarity on that position, because I'm sure that will impact the financial contribution needed from the CJC to develop that piece of work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Percy. I don't believe there has specifically through the CJC discussion. Stuart may be able to give some further information, but certainly we're engaged with Transport for Wales on discussions around the South West Wales Metro and the provision of that network. We're obviously taking the opportunity to lobby both UK and Welsh Government in terms of the release of funds to take the Metro network forward. And Transport for Wales have now completed, I understand, all of the design work around the stations, etc., to support the rail elements. We're in discussions with Welsh Government in terms of a regional pilot for the hydrogen bus trials, which we'd like to see in this. So there are lots of complementary discussions being taken forward, both through the city deal, through the CJCs, and locally between each of the councils, with Transport for Wales and with Welsh Government on a range of transport topics. So I wouldn't say nothing's happening, but again, Stuart may be able to answer the specifics around whether it's in the context of the CJC, whether we've had any assurances, but I know there's a lot of activity going on at the moment generally around the discussions around transport for our region.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Stewart. I think just to add, really, there is a lead officer in terms of for Transport for Wales and a support officer to that who's the sort of coordination point with Transport for Wales. They will be providing modelling information things, but beyond that, we're not clear about the sort of other support they're going to be providing, but we're working with them on, I guess, developing a timescale and the key sort of priority work streams really to take forward. So that'll be in close coordination with Transport for Wales, and obviously that'll be where the first request for support will be, but beyond that we may have to commission support and things from there. So it'll certainly be through a close conversation with them to understand what they can provide. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Percy, happy with that?
Yeah, dear, thanks both for your responses there.
Wonderful. Thank you both. Yes, so Councillor Black, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Hi, Rob. Just on the audit letter, which is here, something which sort of stood out for me on page 23, the penultimate bullet point there. It says, and this is about the SDP process, not necessarily about the transport plan. There is a risk the CJC will not be able to achieve its objectives and improvements for the region if realistic budgets are not allocated to support the delivery of its functions. It needs to determine how it can maximise its abilities as a separate legal entity to help it do this. I'm just wondering, what is the CJC's attitude towards that particular judgment, and whether you're looking at how you can actually deliver on these expectations given the limited resources you have? Are you able to access additional resources, or are the talks going on with Welsh Government about that?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Look, in terms of the CJC, our position has been very clear throughout this process. When we were negotiating with Welsh Government prior to the CJCs being introduced, it was a very clear position that we'd held across Wales, 22 authorities, that the introduction of the CJCs should not place additional burdens on local authorities. You'll know that councils across Wales are facing significant financial challenges, given all of the pressures that we have. And whilst we were happy to work with Welsh Government to set up appropriate regional arrangements, they had to be properly funded. And I think what has happened since the introduction of the CJCs has been the fact that many of the duties that come with a properly constituted body require us to put more resources in, which is something we believe Welsh Government should be funding us appropriately for. And of course, if we're to do the maximum we could do, and I think this is important in the language here, we are not doing the minimum, and we don't agree with the overarching statement in the audit report around more progress could have been made. What we're saying is we will do the maximum we can do if the funding is provided. But if the funding is not provided, we'll do as much as we can with the funding that's available. But certainly, if we're to make the progress that we'd like to make, then we need to see Welsh Government provide additional support for the activities that they're asking us to undertake as part of the CJC. And I think, for our electorates, people would be expecting us, wouldn't they, to prioritise the things that councils are doing in education and social care above some of the regional activities that we're working together on. And that doesn't diminish the importance of trying to get the metro up and running and deliver the metro network and all of the stuff that we'd like to do around transport. It doesn't diminish the stuff that we need to do around strategic planning, but that can't direct resources away from education, social care and elsewhere. So that is why we're consistent in our argument to Welsh Government that money has to be provided to support the regional structures.
Yeah, so clearly the Welsh Government is setting timescales for your transport plan, for the strategic development plan, and all the other things they expect these regional committees to do. Is it likely then, if they don't put these extra resources, you're going to be missing those targets?
Well, we will do all we can to hit the deadline. That is our position. However, it depends. There's only so much you can do with the resources available. And, if you want to give yourself the best chance of meeting those arrangements, then the appropriate level of funding and resources need to be made available. And that can only happen if Welsh Government provide us with that additional help.
And are Welsh Government receptive to this argument?
We're having positive discussion. I don't think it's not a discussion unique to our region. I think that's the point I'd make.
Yeah.
I think this is something that all of the regions across Wales have made similar points about. Look, we have a positive and I think a very good relationship with Welsh Government at all levels. And what we will continue to do is to try and make our arguments as strongly as we can. Hopefully, get to a common position on it.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Okay, Councillor John, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Councillor Stewart. We haven't met, so nice to see you face to face on a screen, albeit. But you picked up on the point there in the audit report, which I was going to mention, where they have acknowledged the issues with meeting deadlines and finances, etc. But then they go on to say, I consider more progress could have been made in these areas and would expect to see greater and swifter progress, which is a little bit sort of counterproductive to what they should be backing up what they say in the other part, really. Just going on from what's been said about the finances, I mean, one of the issues which was raised and is mentioned in the letters is the seemingly duplication of efforts with already good regional working and some plans which have been developed between councils, authorities, and we could go on to the Swansea Bay City region as well, which comes into it all for the economic development. Question really, and it's a bit vague perhaps, but how do you see this progressing or pulling away from any of those arrangements? We don't want to jeopardise any of the good work that goes on already, but clearly Welsh Government want to see these things done under the umbrella of this CJC. So where is the sort of balance or the line where that sort of splits?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll give you my personal view on this one. This may not be the regional view, but certainly my perspective on it. We've got to acknowledge, the city deal, which, as you know, I've chaired the Swansea Bay City region for a number of years. I led the team to negotiate and secure the city deal. But the city deal is a 15-year project. And at the end of the 15-year, we will have delivered all the projects and hopefully created the 10,000 jobs and done everything we needed to do as part of the city deal. The CJC is an arrangement that's here for as long until it's repealed. So it is a regional structure and it's here for forever until it's changed. So what we've done locally is taken a pragmatic view in the same way that Cardiff Capital Region have done with their arrangements. We already have really good regional working relationships. We spent a lot of time getting the structures right to deliver the city deal. And actually, if you look at the Corporate Joint Committee partners and members, and you look at the Swansea Bay City Region partners and members, they're practically the same. With the difference being the national parks, obviously, who don't sit in the Swansea Bay City Region. So it's the same people in the same room around the same table. We work well together. What we didn't want to do is to spend ages reinventing the wheel. So we've basically used the same arrangements. In terms of the city deal, moving that under the sort of structure of the CJC makes sense. Bringing together the education and skills elements with the economic development elements seems to be a sensible move to us. So with that in mind, if you were to look at it from the bottom up, we've got 4 local authorities and their partners who work well together. Whether it's a CJC meeting or a Swansea Bay City Region meeting, depending on the topic, those arrangements are consistent. Above that, we are all now members of the Western Gateway. We've agreed that recently in terms of the Western Gateway structure, which runs now from Pembrokeshire through to Swindon. And then above that, you've got Welsh Government and then obviously national government. So in terms of our ambitions for energy, economic development, and other initiatives, they are all aligned. And I think that then gives us a strong position from which to work forward. So I don't think it needs to be, torn up and start again. I think as long as we're clear about the way in which we run these structures and the costs of running these structures, and that we are appropriately resourced, which is the main point we've made to Welsh Government and to the auditors, then I think we have a really strong base from which to work from. And as I said, I think the relationships and the working arrangements in our region are very, very good, very, very positive. And just because they got a CJC badge on them doesn't really change that much for us. I think Cardiff have taken a pragmatic approach with the capital region. And yes, whilst they're different legal entities, I think we've tried to make them work as best we can.
Yeah, thank you. And I think again, if I can, Chair, I think it all comes back again. I mean, you mentioned the funding there. It all comes back. Everything revolves on the funding, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of work going on in these various partnerships already, and for example, again, the Freeport bid, which is ongoing at the moment in some of the areas, is taking a huge amount of time, and you just wonder how much time officers or the council officers have got to put into all these without any extra funding to specifically make a certain element of it be standalone, if you like. But I don't think it will be standalone. I think it develops, as you say. These partnerships are already there, and you said about giving your view. I think I'll give my view as well. I think Welsh Government are trying to sort of pull these together and say it's all under the CJC, whereas I think a lot of credit should go to the various partnerships within the councils and regions already for the work they've been doing over the many years. So anyway, I just hope this regional work can continue, and the aspect, in the end, it will all come out good, I'm sure, but Welsh Government really need to buckle down on the funding of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John. Thank you for bringing your cat along, Councillor Percy. That's lovely. It's nice to see. Councillor Stewart, if I could just ask you on the second letter I sent you, we highlighted concerns about the net zero and the cost, the extremely high costs that we'll all have to endure or pay to do that. And whilst I think probably everyone agrees of the importance of it and the need to do it, just in terms of the finance for that specifically, it's an area I'm extremely concerned that we've only got 7 years to get to that 2030 deadline, and I'm sure you'd have concerns yourself as well about that. But just if you could maybe update me on, or update us, pardon me, on that.
Yeah. So it's just important to note that the funding we're talking about here didn't come through the CJC. So this element came direct to councils on a local lead basis. So it's slightly different in that. Obviously, within the city deal, where we are collaborating together, we've got projects like the homes as power stations, which again will obviously deliver significant changes into our communities in terms of availability of homes and other stuff. But the overarching challenge, I think, that you were right to point out, is the fact that if we're serious about achieving net zero targets, decarbonising our housing stocks, obviously Swansea is a major housing stock holder. Other authorities don't currently hold stock themselves. They've got different arrangements. But if we are serious as a nation about decarbonising that, the bill is significantly more than any of the available resources at the moment. I think in Swansea, I think we've quoted, we think it's around 700 million it would take to decarbonise. You know, Pembrokeshire, Carmarthenshire and Neath Talbot will have similar figures. I think so. The costs of doing this are significant, and you know, again, there is funding for, if you like, the organisational stuff to make that happen. Some of that's already happening through City Deal and through the projects we've got live. Some of it's being done directly by local authorities. But the challenge for, you know, this is of, I think, UK government funding level. It's going to have to come to meet that kind of ask for decarbonisation of properties, because the bill is just simply beyond, I think, even the Welsh government on this one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I completely. I think I'm sure that the members hopefully agree. Yeah, I completely see where you're coming from with that. In terms of the funding, and it's interesting. It's just interesting, isn't it? I still think that a lot of the time, and when we get things come before us in scrutiny as well, there's still talk about the potential for decarbonisation. You know, this project has the potential to help, and I think we need to, all of us, start moving towards we're delivering on, you know, and how to get the difference and to decarbonise. But yeah, I think that the bills are eye-watering, but you have our full my full support as chair anyway, in terms of trying to encourage Welsh government to provide more resources for that. And
Yeah.
I agree, actually, from the UK government as well, obviously, you know.
Yeah,
okay.
and yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, look, I know we heard talk about CJC is not the city deal, but again, if you look at the homes as power stations project and the pilots that have been run by the 4 local authorities already, there is really good evidence there that we can do this, and we can do it in a way that's sustainable and viable. I'll use the Swansea example on this one because that's the one I know better out of the 4. But again, we've built homes where the energy bills are in the low hundreds of pounds per year for the people in them, and we've all been struggling with our energy bills over the last 12 months. And you know, if we can get the energy bills down for everybody to that level, that is a huge thing to strive for. And likewise, then, in terms of the building of the houses that achieve that are built to a standard whereby we can secure most of the materials, most of the labour locally, that means that the supply chain implications are really positive for our own local economy. So we're not importing elements of those house bills from across the world, from outside of the UK or outside of Wales, and we've adopted a Swansea standard on that, which means that actually what we've tried to do is to make sure our supply chains are as local as they can be. So not only then are we bringing in the materials locally, we're employing the labour locally, we're bringing apprentices on so that they get the skills, but then the properties that come out of at the end of it allow people who may be on very low or no incomes to not have huge energy bills placed on them, because we've got really highly energy efficient properties as a result. So those are things that we have already done. And again, with the support of Welsh Government and UK Government, we can do it on a much bigger scale now, because we've got the expertise in the region to do that.
And excuse my naivety on this question, but are we able to look at taking those lessons and putting them into the the private sector, but where people have been given planning permission to build houses, and maybe they've sat on that planning permission for a while, so they only have to build to the standards when they planning permission went through, and in trying to encourage them to do better? Is there anything we can do? I don't suppose there is as us particular, but anything is there maybe the constituency councils could do in the region to try and encourage developers to build to the standards that are coming out of the HAPs, like from the examples, rather than just the minimum building requirements that they need to meet. I'm sorry, I apologise, because that's well outside of the remit of the agenda item.
No, I mean, look, that was the aim, I think, of the original Homes as Power Stations project, was to try and, increase the availability of that type of technology. So take the specialist technologies and try and make them as mainstream as possible, so that they can be adopted by house builders, and then they become the sorts of things that are built into properties and techniques of building properties when we build new homes. Obviously, Welsh Government already have the Welsh Housing Quality Standard, which is used for council homes and new homes that are built there. Again, the Homes as Power Stations project is already, doing that. Neath Talbot lead that project, and it is about how we then get all of the things that we've learned, all of the new technologies that are coming online, into general house building, so that we all benefit from them.
Lovely. Okay, thank you, Councillor Stewart. Has anyone else got another question? I think I've exhausted my privilege as chair to ask a couple. So if you don't, then I think we'll be able to. Well, thank you, Councillor Stewart, for attending. It's very helpful, very useful session, and you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. But you may have other things to do. That's entirely up to you. We'll move on to agenda item 5, which is the Audit Wales letter. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to dip out if that's okay, but just to say thank you for the invitation again, and I'm more than happy to come back anytime you want to send an invite.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate that. Thank you very much, Rob.
Take care.
Okay. So we'll move on to agenda item 5 then, and I'm going to hand over to Craig Griffiths, Head of Legal at NPT, who will provide us an update on this item. Okay, Craig.
Thank you very much then, Chair. So this is a report that was brought to you that actually went before the Corporate Joint Committee in its last meeting, now just last week. And it's the outcome of a work programme that's been embarked on by Audit Wales in respect of their consideration of the creation of Corporate Joint Committees, and something that they have been considering against each of the former CJCs which have now been established in Wales. The review itself was structured in roughly 2 parts. The first giving a brief overview of their findings, the second being framed about some key risks and opportunities, and their overarching aim was to try to give some assurances about the CJC progress as newly established bodies, and as local authorities and the society in general, we're getting used to their operation for it. So as well as a overarching covering report which is being produced summarising their findings, each CJC has been issued with a general letter, a copy of which has now been included in your papers today, which sets out then the overarching issues that the Audit Wales found as part of the investigation. I think the positive ultimately to take away from it is they've had the assurance that the CJC has established its core governance arrangements, and that most of its arrangements are up and running. At the time that they undertook their investigation, some of our subcommittees had yet to meet. They have now all met, by the last one in respect of energy, which I believe is due to take place next week. And each of those subcommittees, our Scrutiny Committee, Governance and Audit Committee and Standards, are developing its work programme surrounding various matters. So they've taken good assurance that everything is in place there. They found that the CJC had set out a clear vision in its corporate plan 2023-28, which drew on the Regional Economic Development Plan, our regional energy strategies and national policies. You will pick up though the point which again Councillor Stewart just mentioned earlier on, the progress with delivering its strategic development planning and regional transport planning functions was more limited, but I think you would have heard directly from Councillor Stewart why ultimately that was felt. We disagreed with that approach, and it's purely on the basis of obviously CJCs being funded by the Senedd in respect of these matters. There are some areas that will be further developed over the course of the next 6 months as we update our corporate plan. These include the child poverty duty. There's a legal obligation on local authorities to take steps, obviously, to reduce child poverty. That duty is equally applicable to a corporate joint committee, and we do have to develop a participation strategy. So same as our 4 local authority partners have had to produce, the CJC will also need to produce one as well. So some work will be ongoing to have those in place now by the end of this financial year. I'm happy to take any factual questions, Chair, that members may have on the report. It's brought to you today for noting, and so you can take assurances the arrangements are in place. It will also be reported to our Governance and Audit Committee at one of its next meetings in due course as well, Chair.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Craig. It's very, very useful briefing there. Much appreciated. We did mention in the last agenda item just this concern that's already been noted. So about the bottom of page 23, and Councillor Black raised it. The SDP process in particular is complex and lengthy. The CJC needs to get this underway. You were here for that, so I don't need to repeat that. But I think that was an issue, and something else that I think Councillor John raised was the question of the subcommittees not having met. In particular, our scrutiny committee has been up and running from the beginning, and just I think in the page 22 it's a little unclear, so that it implies that we hadn't met, but we have been meeting. So that's just the language I think there. Was there anything else anyone wanted to raise that we haven't already done so? Councillor John.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just ask Craig a question really on the back of what was just what was said, not specifically in the report, but you mentioned the poverty agenda, Craig, and the CJC has got to set this up as well as the four authorities, which again comes back as a bit of duplication. So I wonder what would be different in the CJC one to the ones which the authorities would already have spent a lot of time putting together, where they would know their own areas. I mean, what can the CJC add other than just pull bits out of that and put it in an area plan?
And in essence, Councillor John, that's probably the process that we would be adopting, in the sense that the CJC, of course, has three limited functions as it stands at the moment: strategic planning, regional transport and economic development. So it's looking at the child poverty elements in respect of each of those. Obviously, there will be elements that have been considered by individual local authorities, and bringing them together into one overarching document in respect of those three particular themes. So that is probably the work programme now that will develop. And as the corporate plan goes into its next phase, that will undoubtedly be brought back to the scrutiny committee as well, and hopefully members will be able to contribute at the same time to any particular thoughts that they have. But it's going to be taking what the work programme a lot of authorities are already embarked on and just bringing it now under our CJC umbrella to make sure that everything is interlinked.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John. Anything else? Okay. I think we just need to note this then. Is that right, Alison?
Yes, it is, Chair. Just for noting.
Okay. So we've noted it. Thank you. And we'll move on to agenda item 6, the RTP implementation plan for submission to Welsh Government. Members' questions. So any questions on this? Sean. I was going to say, Sean, did you have a question? Okay. So over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I wasn't sure if there was going to be an introduction to the item at all. Yeah, it was. There's 2 points really. One in terms of it's mainly in terms of how the scrutiny committee can sort of engage in this process as it goes, as it progresses. Obviously, the implementation plan sets out quite a few key dates in preparing the regional transport plan. I think the first one is in February next year, and I think there's going to be the exact wording of it now. But the first element of that plan, the case for change, I think is going to be presented to the CJC in January, I think the week following our meeting. And I was just wondering if that would be ready for us to look at during our meeting to give some feedback before that's formally endorsed by the CJC, so we could do some pre-scrutiny on it. And then a kind of more open question really going forward on some of those other milestones, what the engagement with the scrutiny committee might look like. Obviously, I know there'll be some bits of consultation built into the whole process, but certainly from my point of view as a little bit of a transport nerd, I'd quite like to see some of these items before they're all signed, sealed and delivered to Welsh Government, and I'm sure we could, as a group, we've all got things that we could add value to the process as well. So one specific question and one kind of broader point on how can we engage going forward. Deal.
Thank you, Stuart. Do you want to come in there, Stuart?
Yeah, I'll have a go. I'm slightly frightened that Councillor Percy might know more about the RTP than myself as a transport nerd on there. But no, I think the first element is certainly developing the case for change. It's very much about that kind of stakeholder engagement, understanding the as is. Selves as key members will be hopefully heavily involved in terms of inputting as key stakeholders for that. What I would caveat is the initial indicative dates, the implementation plan has been prepared to the sort of timeline suggested by Welsh Government, I think, on there. I think, and along with a number of other colleagues, that this is a very ambitious timescale. The guidance in terms of for the development of the RTP was somewhat delayed, but the implementation date in terms of the RTP being 2025 has not moved. It's been static. So we've got some concerns which are obviously reflected in the letter to Welsh Government, and initially on the risks in terms of from the report and in the letter to Welsh Government. What we want to do is make sure that what we develop in terms of an RTP is not just I guess a rush job in terms of to tick a box, because I think that would indicate a big sort of missed opportunity for the region. So I think it should really map out what our problems are at the moment, what the challenges are, how things operate at the moment, and then what the opportunities are for the future. So I think although those timescales are there, I guess with the CJC being new and certainly all the functions from Scrutiny, it's a good question as to how we tie in to have that time and how we develop it with the appropriate level of consultation and engagement. And that's one of the concerns really with the 2025 deadline, is that when you bunch all that together, it does look very tight. So I think it's a very fair question, and I guess it is that guidance about how we engage, and that wider question it was about how we engage is something that we do need to consider, and I guess welcome a steer on it from both Scrutiny and the CJC committee, I think, on there.
Okay, thank you for that, Stuart. That's very helpful. Councillor Percy, did you want to come back before I move on?
Yeah, I'll just make sort of two brief points, I suppose. One, if there is some ongoing kind of dialogue between the CJC and the chair of this scrutiny committee, I'm sure we can, as long as we understand when those key dates are, like I said, I'm sure that conversation could be had as to whether the committee wish to contribute to or have sight of some of these documents. I guess on the wider question of the timescales proposed and how realistic they are, in your view, how much more time do you think is necessary to produce this document to a good standard? I think the deadline date there is about 2025.
Yeah.
What's the realistic timescale?
I wouldn't commit to it completely, but my feeling is possibly that an additional 12 months would be somewhere in the right region to develop something that really is properly consulted on and developed. So I think 2026 sort of possibly spring 26 would be a better sort of timescale. But obviously we need to have those conversations with Welsh Government to make sure that, first of all, is it possible to delay that kind of timescale, and secondly, if it's not possible to delay the timescale, what the impact of that would be, and whether it's possible to do something in the interim. So we've, I guess, alerted Welsh Government to our concerns, and that's certainly been reflected in the letter going from CJC. But I really feel that we've got to have something meaningful, and I think it would be a missed opportunity to have something that was not properly developed and consulted on. So that would be my concern with doing it in a compressed timescale.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Councillor Percy. I think it's really key, isn't it? The timescales. A difference between rushing the work through to meet this timeline and actually doing an effective job and a decent job on it, as a transport nerd would appreciate, like Councillor Percy. And yourself, Stuart, as well. So really useful point. Thank you. I'm going to move on. Councillor Black, you've been very patient.
Thank you, Chair. I think you've been surrounded by transport nerds here, Stuart. Just go to this the letter which you sent to the Deputy Minister. Obviously, it's only just gone out, so you haven't had a response. The first bullet point says initial funding allocation of 125,000 is expected for the current financial year. Does that mean that money has to be spent in the current financial year, or are you anticipating, or is the Welsh Government rather anticipating that's all you're getting for the whole development?
I would sincerely hope not. I think it was the timing of when the allocation was coming through. I very much see it as a down payment, just an initial gets off the starting blocks. Obviously, the cost we won't know until we develop a bit more on there, but it certainly be considerably more than the 125,000 that's been initially being quoted. The figure, sorry, initial funding allocation on there. So I think I would expect more funding to come through. I'm not sure in terms of the restrictions with the. We'll have to see when the letter comes through with the restrictions. But I would expect a little bit of latitude and freedom as to exactly when the money's spent, because that'll depend on when different work streams are started. So I would expect there to be a certain amount of freedom with timescale for spending that money. So thank you.
I think Rob said that you've just had the money, or you're just about to get the money.
Yeah, I think I
did say
understand
that,
it's been
Peter, yeah.
confirmed, so it's sort of, but I haven't seen the letter or anything
No.
relating to it yet.
Because essentially you've got 5 months left of this financial year, so spending £125,000 on a project which you haven't really properly developed yet would be quite a challenge, I'd imagine. Yeah. So in terms of the timescales, are you expecting the government to give you that extra 12 months, or do you think or is this likely to be a bit more constrained?
I'm not clear at the moment. I think I would hope that there's a clear recognition. We indicated, I think, fairly early on at officer level that we had concerns. So I would certainly hope that there would be sort of recognition at that stage. I'm sure there may be some hope from Welsh Government that if we were to limit the scope of it, that we may be able to develop something in that timescale. But what we can't do is have something which hasn't been properly consulted on. So I think that's where I'd like to see that. I would like to think that we'll have some sort of support in terms of for extending the timescales, because I think that's something that will hopefully there'll be receptive voices for it anyway. So
okay,
right.
If I might, Chair, just on the consultation, to what you obviously got to develop a methodology, you've got to develop a consultation document, so you're not likely to be ready to do that till sometime next year anyway. How extensive is this consultation going to be? Are you just involving stakeholders, or are you looking to involve a much wider representative sample of the population?
It'll be a mix of both. There'll be obviously key stakeholders. There'll be from obviously the elected members. There'll be the businesses involved. We'll need to look also at any future developments and things coming in. We'll then need to make sure that we have an opportunity for the wider kind of public to be part of that consultation exercise. So going out with understanding what people's views and perceptions are with transport and what their needs. So it'll be a mix. There's some distinct chunks of quite large chunks of consultation for the different strands.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Sorry, Michael, just before I bring you in, can I ask, Stuart, have you talked to colleagues in the other CJCs about this time scale as well? And have you had any feedback from them about the challenges you just mentioned?
Yeah, we've had initial discussions, and there is some wider concern that goes beyond our region about the timescale. So I don't think we're a lone voice. There is obviously different regions may have sort of different stages of the amount of information things have been developed, depending. For example, I know one of the city deals was centred a lot around transport, so they may have had quite a lot of the sort of study work and things done as part of that. But we're certainly not the only region to have concerns over the timescale.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. Thank you. Sorry, thank you, Councillor John.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Thanks, Stuart. And I got some comments or observations really you might want to comment on. But I mean, I appreciate this is a sort of ambitious, high-level sort of transport plan for the area, and the dates are 25 or 26, whichever one it is. If you have 12 months extension, could be difficult to get to. But I just wonder, and perhaps it's because I'm down in West Wales, but I'm just wondering about some of the peripheral elements of this. Really, I mean, you can have this high-level plan, but on the bullet points, or ABC, which are on page 28 and 29. It says the achievement of the plan, etc., which is to make our transport services infrastructure accessible and inclusive by aiming to remove physical, attitudinal, environmental, systematic, and on the various barriers there. But one which isn't mentioned is geographical, and although this might be a plan for the area, you come down to some of the more remote areas of West Wales, I dare say Pembrokeshire, Carmarthenshire. There is no public transport, there is no plan. I mean, it goes on further in the report on some of the bullet points. I'm just flicking through now, bear with me. Improving public transport connectivity, making public transport more affordable. I mean, they're all very noble and ambitious and great to write down in for Welsh Government to see, but what does it actually mean for people in the areas where there isn't public transport to have a high level plan? And when you do consult, I mean, it depends how you get to those people to get those views put in. But we saw a couple of weeks ago Welsh Government cut in funding for one of the Booker bus services, which was going out to remote areas. They slashed the funding for that, but that was sort of cancelled. So it's, like I say, it's a comment really about it's very noble to have this plan, have it in place, but what does it actually mean for people in remote areas when you can't get public transport?
Yeah, it's a valid concern and question really on there. I mean, I guess the guidance and what we're expected to develop from the regional transport plan is very much based on Llwybr Newydd, which is the kind of Welsh Government, the Wales Transport Strategy. And that is about implementing that hierarchy of sort of, I guess, transport priorities, which starts off at active travel, then in terms of public transport, and down at the bottom is the kind of, I guess, the private vehicle. However, there's got to be that recognition that for some areas, you know, the only sort of transport that's available in some parts are, or you know, it's certainly more limited in terms of that public transport element. So certainly with the strand of work for developing the case, and there's a section which talks about the review of the evidence and identify issues and opportunities. And top of that list is consideration is about rurality and access to services and car dependency, and household access to car by area, because for some of those areas there is that real concern. You know, some will have access to a car, but it's how those people in some of the communities, in very rural communities where they don't have access to a car, what their transport needs are, and how can this sort of plan help give a vision to address that. Massive challenges, but that's very much part of why we feel we want this to be properly consulted and developed, so that we really understand what the needs of a really diverse community, from some, you know, quite densely populated urban areas to some very sparsely populated rural areas. And it's certainly not a one size fits all. So I think that is part of the work to try and understand what the barriers are and what the potential things, the solutions could be. So yeah, it's a challenge, but I think trying to capture that and make sure that it does reflect the diverse nature of the region is really important.
Thank you. That's reassuring to have that, and I think from the earlier comment, it's more important then that it does have a due scrutiny from us to make sure that those consultations are hitting the right people, if you like, and the results are fed back in. So it would be good to be on the scrutiny agenda, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree, Councillor John, and thank you, Stuart. I mean, you know, the difference between an urban area within our CJCs, you know, where the bus service might be cut from every half an hour to an hour, and you know that might cause outrage, is very different from some of the rural communities where the bus services are being cut from one a week to nothing. You know, and this, you know, the you know, the rural services are such a vital part of it. And you're right to point out that it's actually top of your list there in the section that you've got that to be considered. But it's certainly crucial going forward. And I'd just like to see if we can, you know, with the case for change, get as early a draft as possible, assuming you get that work done. If we can have something for the meeting in it's January, February, then that would be very good, Alison, if we could request that would be great. Any other questions on this item? Okay, we'll move on then, because the report's for noting. So the next item is thank you, Stuart, for that, for your support and information. So we'll move on to item 7, which is the Corporate Joint Committee Forward Work Programme. So this is for information only, to consider if there's anything that members wish to consider and add to the Scrutiny Forward Work Programme. So have we got anything we wanted to add in from that?
Chair, only the items around the regional transport plan, but I think they need further discussion.
I think we've covered that. Yeah, thank you, Sean. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, but yeah, thank you for noting that. So unless there's anything else, we'll move on to the next item. Good. Item 8, forward work programme. So that's our forward work programme. And all we need to do is add in exactly what we just discussed there, the case for change draft as early as possible. And if we can feedback to the CJC, we'd like as much of an opportunity at pre-scrutiny, pre-implementation of these things, that we can get an opportunity to support and feedback as well, please. So that's item 8. Item 9 is urgent items, and the good news is there are none. So I'd like to thank you all for attending to the meeting today. Thank you everyone on Zoom who hasn't contributed but sat there in the background. I appreciate that as well. Unless there's any questions, I think we'll finish there. No, lovely. Thank you very much, and goodbye. I'll close the meeting.